Hi, everyone. So I'm back with you guys on Career Chats with Mel. And thank you for tuning in. I'm Melissa, as you know, and today is such an exciting day for me, where I get to speak to Zoe Brown. And I was having a little fangirl moment just before we started recording because I'm always seeing on our screens on television, I'm hearing her voice on radio, seeing her Instagram feeds, all the things she's creating, and it's such a privilege, just to actually have you with me on this platform. And so I really hope that those of you who are going to listen and are tuning into this interview will hopefully take something away, and also have a little bit of a fangirl moment like I had. But yeah, thank you, Zoe Brown, for availing yourself to chat to us
Thank you.
On this platform.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. I feel honored that you've called me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so today, what you can expect, I just wanted to chat to Zoe about her journey into radio presenting. And so that's going to really be the highlight of our time together, because we all know her being presenting on Espresso as well. And I thought, just somebody who wants to follow perhaps that trajectory in entertainment, to hear from Zoe. So before we get going into sort of what you do, I just wanted to get to know Zoe as a person. And maybe there are listeners, young people out there who see Zoe on the screens, but they don't really know where Zoe
much about me.
Yes. So Zoe, do you mind sharing a little bit about where you grew up? Yeah.
Okay, so I grew up in Cape Town. We lived in Kuils River, and then I went to the Kaylin Primary School, and then my mom and dad, they were, for my dad's work, we moved to Durban, KwaZulu-Natal. So I grew up Afrikaans, grade 1 to grade 5, and then in grade 6, I got switched over to an English class. And that was very difficult because I only had Afrikaans friends. I had a cousin that spoke English and another cousin that spoke English, and that was the extent of my English. So then all of a sudden I had to switch academics to English in grade 6 while still in Cape Town. And then halfway through my grade 6 year, we moved to Durban. And it's amazing how you get put in a new environment and then you just thrive in something you didn't think you would thrive. So that's kind of how I ended up in Durban. I did high school in Durban, and then after Durban, I took a gap year. I wasn't sure what to go and study. So I went to America and I was an au pair for 18 months. And then after that, I came back and studied at Stellenbosch. So that's kind of where I am in terms of, I grew up pretty equally in both cities.
Wow. And then that transition, like you said, was a shock that you did so well, in that transition and moving to a different place altogether, having to make new friends. I'm sure that wasn't easy, really. And then also, as you've said, you've decided to come back and study at Stellenbosch. And so was that always something that you knew you were going to do, like study after school?
Not really. So when we moved to Durban, the reason we moved was for my dad's work. And when we got to Durban, things didn't turn out as planned. So my dad had to leave his job and start his own business. And that's when our family went through a massive financial dip. I call it a dip. And yeah, so my family really struggled. So when all of my friends in high school, by matric, they already knew what they wanted to go and study afterwards. And because I wasn't sure where the money was going to come from to pay for my studies, and I didn't want a student loan, so I just decided I'm going to take a gap year and be productive within that year that I'm off. Luckily, my brother, who's older, he also took a gap year. So the idea of taking a gap year wasn't foreign to my mom and dad. But I said, I don't want to be in Durban. I want to go and do something productive. So that's why I decided to go au pair. And then I got a bursary for Stellenbosch University to go study there. And that's how I ended up at Stellenbosch. So I studied undergrad, so international relations. So that was year 1, 2, and 3. I graduated. And then it's actually so funny because then I got my degree, and I still remember going home that Christmas to my dad. And he was like, okay, so what are you going to do next year? And I said to him, I'm not ready to join the working world yet, but I don't think you guys can afford to allow me to study another year. So I'm going to take another gap year. So that was my plan. I wanted to be an air hostess. And he didn't like that idea. He just kind of said to me, because for someone in our family to graduate from university is quite a big thing. So my dad wasn't quite keen on the idea of me being an air hostess, and I just graduated with my first degree. So he said to me, if I want to go study, he'll make a plan. And he managed to work really, really hard to get me through my honors year. But yeah, that was a difficult decision because I felt guilty knowing that the finances, the strain I was putting on my parents, but I had my dad's support. So that meant a lot to me.
So that, I think, brings me to the question of, during whether it was high school or that transition from high school to university, having to think about what am I going to study, and then now you're pointing out, even after having the degree, like your desire was to continue studying. Was your dad that champion for you, or was there other examples that you could navigate to say, like, this is where I'm thinking of going? And the questions that you kept on having, was there somebody like that for you in your life?
I'm very fortunate to have that relationship with my dad, where he is a big mentor for me, especially given that he stepped away from something that was constant and took a big risk to work for himself. And essentially now, me being in radio and TV, I am to a certain degree also a freelancer. So, you're not guaranteed work. You're not guaranteed, an opportunity unless you put yourself out there. But yeah, it was nice to have him. But I think what also helped was I wasn't afraid to just take that risk. I think I used to also, just to give you some comparison, growing up, I was pre-moving to Durban, I was that girl that did everything her friends did. If they decided to cut their hair in a fringe, I wanted to cut my hair in a fringe. If they decided this was cool, I would copy them and think this is cool too. So I had no individuality. I didn't know how to really just be myself. And I think moving to Durban was such a key moment for me to just be me. I was the new girl in school. Gosh, I had braces. Those braces where you have the elastics on the side? It was horrible, but that was me in grade 6 with braces and all, moving. And I think just being the different girl, being the girl from Cape Town, that just really allowed me to just own that weirdness that was that phase I was going through. But yeah, I can tell you this: whenever it comes to making decisions for moving on or making commitments for whether it's studying, even choosing subjects in high school, I always struggle making those commitments. But one thing I have found is that, let's say it comes down to your subject choices in high school, you have the opportunity to still make changes. The same with university. When I got to university, I wasn't sure if international relations is the one I wanted to go in. And there were options to change. I didn't. I ended up staying with what I chose to do, and I was very happy with it. But I had friends that changed their mind, and it didn't set them back. It was just, it's also okay to change your mind once you've made a commitment.
And that's very encouraging, because I think a lot of people think that when they've decided to study a particular thing, that is the end, that is a forever thing. And you can take from Zoe's story that it's okay to change your mind. It's okay not to have it all figured out. And I think I said it in a previous interview that when we have to make these very big and important decisions, we are kind of like only 18 years old. In reality. And so if you think about what am I going to be doing for the rest of my life, it's quite a big decision.
It's scary. And I also just want to say, you know, when it comes to making those big decisions, definitely talk to, it helps to have conversations with adults in that aspect. So talk to people at school who is like a guidance counselor, or teachers who have studied, you know, further than the subject they might be teaching at school. And it's so interesting just to find out there's so many people that have studied a certain direction and ended up going in another direction. And that's okay too, because that's what a lot of people end up doing. They use the experience from the one to, you know, put themselves in a field. And what was quite interesting was, when I told my mom and dad, I'm going to go study international relations, my mom had no idea what it is. And I think, honestly, to this day, she still doesn't, because in her mind, you know, you study education to become a teacher, you do accounting to become an accountant, you do medicine to become a doctor. Yeah. So what do you become when you do international relations? And she couldn't believe it when I said to her, you don't become anything. It's just a skill set that you learn. And that was very difficult for her to wrap her mind around. But I said to her, I'm busy preparing myself for something that doesn't exist yet. Wow. And if you look at the world right now, I mean, I don't know how old Uber is, but it can't be more than 15 years old. We would never have thought a e-service like Uber would be here, or even Uber Eats, or whatever the platform is. So many things keep getting invented, and I think it's up to us to try and stay a little bit more on the flexible side to be able to adjust.
That's so important, because even when I think who you are, you know, probably your exposure, you know, playing overseas, that must have played a huge role in just navigating what opportunities there were out there. And so I'm interested to know, like, how did you even get to the decision to do international relations as a degree?
So before leaving for my gap year, I thought I wanted to go do accounting. I thought I was going to become an accountant because I love numbers. I love maths. I loved accounting. And those were my two strong marks in school. So when I went on my gap year, I realized I love not having a schedule. I love having a little bit of freedom. I love meeting foreign people. I have an interest in what's happening all over the world. And when I was looking at Stellenbosch University, all the different degrees they offer, I just had a read on all the different blurbs, and international relations really stood out to me. I loved the global approach it had. My major was politics, so that was quite fascinating. And I loved how it was current affairs. So that's kind of how I made my decision. I realized what it is that I want and what I didn't want. And it's also like, it's fine if you don't know what you want, but I think it's very important to also be able to establish what you don't want. So I, from the beginning, said, I don't want to work at 8 to 5. I should have been more specific with what I wanted to work, because now I work from 4 a.m. till 7 p.m. But I have that freedom that I want.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I wanted to transition now into your journey into what you're doing, basically, because like you've said, it doesn't matter what you've done before. Somehow you are going to be using your experience of what you've been through, perhaps your degree, in some way or form to support what you're doing, even now in your media and in your creative side. How are you linking, or you finding that you're linking the international relations to what you do on an everyday basis?
So I'm going to give you a little background as to how I ended up getting into media. So my favorite movie is The Devil Wears Prada. I don't know if you've seen it, with Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep. They are my two favorite actresses in the whole world. And so what had happened was, I watched the movie The Devil Wears Prada and I loved it. It's about this small girl, this girl from a small town that went to the big city, and she got involved in the media industry through print. And even though she didn't get the high-paying, glossy job, she realized by doing the groundwork for 1 year, being Miranda Priestley's assistant, meant that 1 year of hard work can open so many doors for her. And that was my approach, because I did while I was a student, we had a campus radio station, and that's where I put my CV in. They were looking for new presenters, so I just took a chance, and they took a group of us in. I think we were about 18, and they trained us up, and you went through the whole, it was a vigorous process, and eventually you got awarded your own radio show after months of training and working. And your first radio show was from 3 a.m. till 6 a.m., which isn't glamorous at all.
Yeah.
So I did my little radio show from 3 till 6 on a Monday morning, once a week. And from there, when you show up and you dedicated, people notice, and people are willing to, if they need a stand-in, they're willing to employ the person who's top of mind. So my dad always said to me, just stay top of mind. So even on the days where I was off and I didn't need to be in the office, I would still go through and do my admin there on the computer instead of staying home and doing it and watching series at home. Because then I was top of mind. One of the presenters called in and said, listen, they are sick, they can't do it. And the programming manager turned around and was like, hey, Zoe, are you free tonight to do the 6 to 9 or the 9 to 12? And I'm like, yes, I am. So that for me was such valuable advice, to always be top of mind. I think it's easier to find opportunities if you put yourself out there, whether it is working in a coffee shop, whether it is, doing an internship that doesn't necessarily pay, but it's putting you there. Even at work, we had phases where we had makeup artists that interned, and when they needed a new makeup artist or needed a makeup artist for a specific job, they used the person they trusted, and that was the face they saw often. So if I can encourage anyone that wants to get into a field and they're not sure how to do it, look for an internship, look for a job shadow opportunity, but be present. Don't go to these things and be on your phone and disconnect from what you could learn, and the conversations you could be having.
That's amazing advice, because often I think we expecting things to fall in our laps, really. And yeah, your advice is basically to say, put yourself out there, but also while doing that, be present in the moment.
Yeah.
Taking all of that information while you
are. And I don't know, maybe it's just me. Ooh. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call here. Okay. Can you see me? Yes, sorry. No problem. So another thing I wanted to also just point out is our cell phones are big distractors. Our access to Netflix or movies or series, whatever it is that's your distraction, you'll be amazed how creative you can be the minute you experience a little bit of boredom. And so often I think today's kids and young people, we keep ourselves busy with devices and we don't get bored. We don't pick up a book and draw. We don't pick up a book and color. We don't sit in front of the piano and, practice a couple of notes, because we have so many things keeping us distracted. And I find I'm my most creative, or I have the best ideas the minute I allow myself to just switch off from distractions like TV and series. So what I do is I'm going on holiday soon. I'm going to go visit my parents in Durban. So all the series I've been dying to watch, I'm going to binge watch in like 2 days.
Just like get it out of the way. You're healed. And then
just 2 days.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Something I wanted to say is what helped me also get a job opportunity was because during university, I did these internships at the radio station. You never know who could be listening to you. Because when I did my honors year, I said to my dad, listen, I just want to be a normal student. I'm going to step away from radio. And I did step away from campus radio. And that's when KFM approached me and they were like, we've been listening to you. We would love for you to come in for an interview. And that took me by surprise because I already said I'm done with radio. But then I realized this is a big opportunity. This is a regional radio station. I'd be silly to say no. And I took a chance and I said, okay, I'll come in for the meeting. And living in Stellenbosch and KFM being in Greenpoint, I didn't have a car, but I took the train from Stellenbosch to town and then walked up Strand Street to the studios. Eventually, I became savvy enough to realize where to catch the taxi that goes down Somerset Road or all the way to Sea Point. But it wasn't easy. My journey to radio wasn't easy because it required me twice a week to take the train or sleep on a couch just so I can do my show from midnight to 4 in the mornings.
And that's again so evident of almost the hard work, like that you were talking about. Do the hard work in the beginning. So taking the crappy shifts at the radio, being top of mind, positioned you for something, perhaps far greater than what you would have imagined for yourself. And I think that's so encouraging. Yeah.
But also, I think doing these small things, you prepare yourself for something greater. And if you skip these steps, when the big moments come, you won't have the self-confidence in yourself. I think I wouldn't know, because I've always had to do the little things in between, so that when the bigger opportunities came, I was able to take hold of it fully. Whereas friends have been given opportunities and then they don't know how to cope with the pressure because they don't believe in themselves and they haven't worked hard enough to be there in order to stay there as well.
Yeah, and when a challenging scenario or crisis or moment presents itself, I think perhaps that moment becomes too much for us. And we can.
And you grow. Yeah. You grow during the tough times. That's when you grow the most.
And so I wanted to pause a little bit with your journey into you now being sort of fully fledged. Everyone, I think, who listens to KFM still at this point in time, they recognize your voice, they recognize the little quirks that you bring into when you're still doing the traffic. How many TV shows can you name while I'm saying the traffic? Or, which I think is such an interesting spin, is that you bring your own personality and your own flavor to that segment. And yet to some, it's a small piece and it's a small segment of whatever, but it sounds, when you do it, you give it all of what you have in that moment. And I think that's encouraging. For somebody who's listening, a young person who may aspire one day to get into this industry, perhaps also radio, what would be some of the tips that you could provide, for them to not just do it as a job, but just enjoy it and bring their personality to life really while doing it?
Yeah, I always found it so difficult when people said to me, just be yourself. That is probably the most difficult advice you can give someone that doesn't always know how to be herself, given that I was such a big copycat growing up. The one thing I do want to encourage everyone to do is really pay attention to the things you are interested in. If it is words and you love reading, pursue that. If you find yourself creative using your hands, go for it. Do the things that get you excited and focus on that. And those are like your passions. Focus on it, get good at it. And whatever you end up being good at, you can always bring that back to TV. You can always bring that back to radio. I don't believe in you must just go and study radio and study TV. I think you need to really go fill your life up with the things you're passionate about, and you can bring that to a platform like radio and TV, even social media and YouTube and any platform. Because I did international relations, for example, but look at, for example, Dr. Michael Mole. He is a doctor. He studied medicine. He practiced medicine, but he managed to bring that to TV. Look at Carl Wasty that I worked with. He studied psychology, and he is passionate about this, you know, the way people think and the way people are. And even though he didn't go into practice, he uses his psychology degree through our radio show, through a feature called Psychology on a Monday, where if you have a problem, he'll fix it with a song. So you can really, whatever you are passionate about, you can always bring that to radio and TV. And I think something we as presenters often have to remind ourselves is we are human first before we are presenters. And I find the weeks where I've been so busy with work and I haven't allowed myself any freedom to play or see friends or do fun things, those are the weeks that I struggle most to be creative, because you have to live.
Yeah.
You have to do things you like.
Yeah.
So definitely pay attention to the things you are drawn to, pursue it wholeheartedly, and remember you can always bring that to TV and radio.
That's such excellent advice. And I think what Link saying is, you know, things that inspire you. So connecting with your loved ones or connecting with friends, they inspire you just by having a different conversation with a girlfriend or a mutual colleague, or, you know, that type of thing. And so you bring that and you draw from that, I think, in your workplace on many occasions.
Yeah, they do.
And so I think I also wanted to give you an opportunity to share, because I am a follower of Zoe. I think many of you probably who's going to be listening, you also follow her on social media. And I think I was so encouraged by, I think, what is an example of what you are saying, like what you are into, what you're passionate about. And what I've noticed for a while is your passion for health and fitness, but not just you sharing that on social media, but how that has now transcended and given you opportunity to develop your own apparel brand with collaborations that has come from that. And I thought that is so encouraging, that for a long time you were just sharing, you know, your fitness journey, and now to see where that has led in that space. And I think it's also just linked to you as a creative, you know, creating new things. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about that product that you've developed, your fitness apparel, and where people can find that to support.
Thank you, Mel. That's very sweet of you. Yeah, I still can't believe I brought out my own fitness apparel range. It's been such a cool collaboration with a team called Gym Nerd. So we actually interviewed them on the radio station, and they help people like me start their own brands. And what happened was, Carl said, hey, if Zoe wants to create her own pants, is that something you can help her with? And they said yes. And I thought it would just be as simple as, okay, we pick a pair of pants, we add some color to it, and then we're good to go. And I realized the minute I put the first sample on, I like my pants to sit a specific way. And it was a lot of back and forth until I was happy with the fit. And it's something I'm proud of. It's something that I basically live in. And I think, I wanted to make biker shorts that you don't really find in store, in colors you don't really find in store, because you do find bikers, but they're all black or they like dark colors. I want bright colors. So that was just such a fun way to, you know, something that's been in your mind for so long, to finally make it a reality. So we've got some fun colors that will be coming out ahead of winter for end of April, and it's available on gymnerd.co.za. It's an online store. I am still looking for opportunities to, you know, now that life is going back to normal, to maybe join a market or a pop-up, because I know a lot of people are quite hesitant to order online. But it's been such a fun journey, just to see the behind the scenes thing. And the thing that makes me most proud of is that it's made in Cape Town. So it's people from Cape Town that makes these, and it's just wonderful to know that I now, you know, can share that with everyone.
And wear your own clothing while you are also doing something you enjoy doing, which is working out.
Yes, that's quite nice too.
Yeah, I'm sure it's such a proud moment for you, you know, knowing that it's your own design and thinking and energy that went behind it. And And so I just wanted to say thank you again for your time. We really appreciate that, you know, people that sound like us, that look like us, that went through the same perhaps journey of transitions and having to navigate different schooling systems, that we can draw from your experience and the life lessons really that you've shared, and the gems that you have dropped for many of us who are listening and are going to tune in. And I think I just wanted to capture that. What stood out for me about our conversation and what you are sharing is, one, you know, put yourself out there. And I think a lot of the times opportunities are presented, but it's the action that comes from ourselves and recognizing the opportunity. And that's what Zoe's story highlights, you know, even just starting way back for me. If I think about your journey going into OP, not just wanting to sit back and relax, being very intentional about the direction, not maybe knowing what that might bring, but putting yourself out there, coming back, linking up with the local radio station and doing the hard work, being in the detail and the small steps. So, and there's so many points that I think you can take away and summarize for yourself about our time together. But I just wanted to say that it doesn't have to be, you know, you have to go and study radio presenting. You have to study a particular degree to get, it doesn't sound like that is the only way.
No.
From what you have shared. And I think the top thing is whatever you're interested in, bring that to the media space, bring that to YouTube, bring that to radio or TV presenting.
Yeah. And may I just add, sorry, I just want to add that, you know, the South African media space, it's not a very big industry. And I think what I want to encourage anyone trying to get into the industry is, don't be discouraged if it's not your time yet. Just because you didn't make it through in an audition doesn't mean you are not talented. It might just mean it's not your time. But also, don't sit and wait for the next audition. Put your work out there through platforms like YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and whichever, sorry, there's my cat, whichever phase you want to. I think, you know, create that platform for yourself. Even if you only have 2 or 3 followers, it's about that practice of putting yourself out there, because to be vulnerable is not easy. You know, to speak into a microphone and do a little video of yourself, that's not easy. But by practicing, you get more confident at it. And regardless of how many people view it, you do it for yourself.
Thank you so much for just summing up, really, that we don't have, I think, excuses also. A lot of excuses to say that opportunities aren't available. We have our cell phones, we have the internet, and even if, like I keep saying in many of my interviews that I do with people, even if you don't have Wi-Fi, even if you don't have access to data, there are ways, there are malls, there are coffee shops that offer free Wi-Fi. And if you just have to go and sit there and do a video of yourself, do that, I think. Is what we're saying, to just put the action behind the opportunity that does present. So thank you, Zoe. Thank you for your time. And it was lovely to see you and your little cat there. I always see him in pictures.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. And I hope those of you are listening will share this with as many of your friends, family members. So thank you again for tuning in. Bye. See you.